Before we get into today's episode, quick show update as to what the schedule is going to look like for me at Chat Sports and Falcons today. So, over a week ago, I announced that Friday, May 23rd would be my last day at Chat Sports, and that's partially true. So, last weekend, my bosses took me out to brunch, and they made me an offer that was very interesting, which was when you come back from your wedding and honeymoon in the middle of June, would you be interested in doing some at-home content, filming videos from your kitchen for about 4 to 5 weeks into the middle of July while we search for your replacement? And that seemed like a pretty good outcome for all parties involved, right? Chat Sports get more content on the channel while they search for a replacement for me. I get to hang out with you guys for an extra month, and you guys get videos for an extra 4 or 5 weeks, whereas it could have been a dead period. So, I'm going to leave for my wedding and honeymoon on like May 28th, 29th, at which point I will officially be incognito for 3 weeks. And then when I come back, you'll see me once again, but from my kitchen filming videos for a month while they search for my replacement. So it's a little bit of stop and go, but that's basically what the next month and a half or so looks like. Now, let's get into the reason why you clicked onto today's show, which is the Atlanta Falcons defense is going in a whole new direction. I'm excited for today's episode because we're not talking about Kirk Cousins rumors or anything like that. We're really sinking our teeth into the identity and the DNA of the 2025 Falcons. And I think a good place to start by trying to figure out what Jeff Ulbrich's defense is going to look like is by looking at what Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris did in the offseason. Look at the additions they made and the losses. Is there anything that jumps out to you guys? How about the size difference? How about going from Eddie Goldman, 325 pounds, to, not a single notable addition over 250 pounds? The Atlanta Falcons are trying to get a faster defense on the field. They are shedding the big fellas for the more nimble, speedier guys. So there are some pros and cons that come with this overarching different way of thinking. A big pro is it's better for pass coverage. It's easier for lighter and quicker guys to stay in coverage with running backs and tight ends in the flat and over the middle of the field. Now, the con is when you shed a 325-pound defensive tackle, you're not going to have as many big fellas in the middle of that defensive line to eat up blockers to help stop the run. You have David Onyemata still, but you're a little bit thin at run stoppers. So with that, I want to start to put you on to what I think the Atlanta Falcons are doing, which is they are trying to be at the forefront of the latest trend in the NFL. It's a copycat league, right? We see someone roll out a new idea and then give it a season or two later, and everyone's doing it. And I think the Atlanta Falcons in 2025 are going to be one of the first teams to arrive at the scene of we are selling out for the pass. We don't care that much about the run. Beat us on the ground. We will not let you beat us through the air. And that is 180 for starters from the way football had been run for 100 years, more or less. Now, this thinking, I think, derives from the new Chicago Bears head coach, Ben Johnson, who made it public. So Josh Kendall from The Athletic had a great article which touched on this. But I want to share with you guys what Ben Johnson, the new Bears head coach, the former Lions offensive coordinator, had to say about a very, bear with me here, specific analytic. The way I understand it right now from our analytics team, the EPA in the passing game is really one of the most critical factors in determining wins and losses right now. Whatever team has the higher passing game EPA at the end of the game, they generally win that game over 80% of the time. I know we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here, but please stick with me because I promise I'm going to land this plane and it won't be bumpy. But the first thing I want to address is what the heck is EPA, right? EPA stands for expected points added. This is, I think, in baseball terms, the next like OPS metric, where at first it's a little confusing and it won't be long until it's just almost the standard, if you will. So, some background on what EPA is. It's best described with examples. The technical definition is it is a measure of how well a team performs relative to expectation. So, let me give you a real life example. All right. Here's a chart that might help you out if you're more of a visual person. If an offense steps on the field, 1st and 10 at their own 30-yard line, the EPA, the expected points added for that drive, might be 1. Right? The analytics say, hey, 1st and 10 from your own 30, we are expecting that you finish this drive with 1 point. Obviously, you can't get 1 point, but when you have 7 of those drives, the expectation is you have 7 points out of all 7 of those drives, right? That's what EPA is in a nutshell. It's best used to differentiate different stats. So let me try and verbalize it, and then I'll give you a visual example of it. Let's say me and producer Reed finish with the identical stat line. 5 carries, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. Reed's carries all came, 4 of them came at the goal line, and he got 1 touchdown, and the rest came off, the rest of 50 yards came from 1 long run. All right? So from the goal line, he had 4 carries for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. And then he had 1 carry for 49 yards. 4 out of those 5 carries were not, from a metric standpoint, very impressive. You're at the 1, and it took you 4 tries to get to the end zone. But you end the day with 5 carries for 50 yards and 1 touchdown. Let's say I have 5 carries for 50 yards and 1 touchdown in a different game. But all 5 of my carries came on 3rd and 5. And I picked up the first down in every single one. And on one of them, I even scored a touchdown. Well, we had the same stat line, but who had the better day for the team? They'd say me. I got 5 first downs and a touchdown from beyond the 1-yard line. Reed got the bare minimal done 4 out of 5 times and had 1 long run. That's the goal of EPA, is so that you don't look at the box score and see, Petey and Reed, they had identical games, 5 carries, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. That's what it tries to accomplish. Let me give you now a visual example of this, and then I promise I'm going to bring this back to the Atlanta Falcons, but I think it's important for everyone to have a good grasp and understanding of how EPA works. I went back and I looked at an example of when Atlanta had 1st and 10 from about the 50. I couldn't find exactly that, but I found 2nd and 10 from the Tampa Bay 49. So very similar to 1st and 10 from the 50. When you have 1st and 10 from the 50, the expected points for that drive is 2.5. So they're saying you're more than likely going to get close enough for a field goal, right? You're starting that close to the opponent's end zone. Now, on this play, Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown. You might remember it because he started a showboat as he got into the end zone. So, here's how EPA works for specific players. The team's expected points going into that drive was 2.5. Kyle Pitts scored 6 points. So you take 6, subtract 2.5 from that, because that's what you were expected to do since you started at the 50. So the EPA expected points added for that play by Kyle Pitts is 3.5. He added 3.5 points on from what the expectation was. Does that make sense? So if you score a touchdown on 3rd and 20 from your own 5, that's way more impressive than if you score a touchdown on 1st and 10 from their 10-yard line. It's also doubly and triply more impressive because of the situation. It's way harder to score from your own 5, 10-yard line than the opposition's. But in the box score, it shows I have 1 touchdown and Reed has 1 touchdown. Okay, but I want to know, what were those touchdowns like? If you get a first down on 4th and 7, that's more valuable to your team a 10-yard run than if Reed gets a 10-yard run on 2nd and 20 to make it 1st and 10. So I hope we have a good grasp of what EPA is. Now, the downfall is it's the first word in EPA. It's expected. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? If I get a 50-yard run on 3rd and 20, well, my EPA that play could be 2. I added 2 points to our team's drive. But if we don't score a touchdown because our quarterback throws an interception in the red zone, well, I still have the same EPA for my play earlier, but we didn't get those points actually. So don't lose sight of it's expected, but it doesn't always mean you're actually going to come through with it. So now let's bring the Falcons into the loop here. Jeff Ulbrich, speaking to the media not long ago, said, "It's such a huge shift in how football has ever been approached. It forced me to reassess how I approach defense because I was classically taught in the game, you better stop the run first. It's been an evolution for me in the last 10 years. So as offenses gear up to be more dynamic in passing, as we learned from Ben Johnson earlier, because if you win that passing EPA game, you're going to win 80% of the time. Well, then defenses have to counter with great pass defenses. That comes in the secondary, but that comes with pass rush. That comes with not letting the quarterback get comfortable. And the price of doing that is your run-stopping unit will suffer. I'm all right with this line of thinking under one pinky promise, Jeff. You just can't be bottom 5 in run-stopping. If you ranked 1 through 32, whatever metric you want to use. You can use rushing yards on the ground. You can use EPA rush. You can use rush defense success. I don't care. Let your analytics team pick whichever one is the most important for truly evaluating a run defense. Whatever you come up with, you just got to pinky promise me you will not be bottom 5. You don't have to be like the 85 Bears up there. But just don't be 28th or 29th. I'll be happy with 24th, 23rd, right? All right, you're kind of in the bottom third, but we can manage that. If the price of selling out with speed for stopping opponent's pass is you can't stop a nosebleed on the ground, then as Raheem Morris taught us all last year, if you can't stop the run on early downs, your pass rushers won't have 3rd and 10 to pin their ears back on. If 1st and 10 turns into 2nd and 5, and 2nd and 5 turns into 3rd and 1, unfortunately, your first-round picks, James Pierce and Jalen Walker, they don't get the chance to sack the quarterback because the other team's going to run until you stop them. So in order to get to the quarterback and sack him, you need him to pass. And they'll do that on their own a certain amount of times. But if they run at will, then what's the incentive to pass on 1st and 10 when they've had so much success running the ball on 1st and 10? All right, before we get on out of here, if you would like to get a Jalen Walker jersey, a James Pierce jersey, use this link, chatsports.com/ATL rookies. I put this link in the comments and description of today's video. It is a great way to support the channel, but more importantly, get yourself a brand new Atlanta Falcons rookie jersey. That way you're not going to week 1 with a Julio Jones jersey, a Matty Ice jersey. Nothing against those guys, but you don't want to have the old jersey. To really put a bow on today's episode, what's your concern level over Atlanta's defense? Scale it 1 to 10 for me. I'd probably put myself at like a 6.6. They made some fun acquisitions in the offseason. They had some good draft picks. But I got to see it to believe it for the youngins first. So put me down for a 6.6. We're going to spin the wheel to wrap it up. Here we go. Looking good for Eli. Hit the brakes, Eli. Julio. Speak of the devil. Julio Jones. And then it has the salute emoji. All right. 2 claps for Julio. 1, 2. We'll see everyone later.